One of the survivors that you represent is Annie Farmer, and she reacted today to AG Todd Blanche's confirmation hearing, or Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. This is what she had to say. Todd Blanche has failed survivors at every turn. He's overseeing an investigation that has repeatedly re-traumatized survivors and has sought to bury the case even as questions remain unanswered about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's vast network of enablers and supporters. Blanche cannot rewrite history or pretend this investigation is over when the evidence shows otherwise. The Senate must not reward this record of failure, deception, and disregard for survivors. We urge the Senate not to confirm him. Those last two lines, Todd Blanche does have a record of failure, deception, and disregard for the survivors. I was so glad to see this statement from Annie today, Jennifer.
Simone, you're absolutely right. It really was a very powerful statement, and thank you for having me. She's a very articulate survivor, and she speaks for many survivors when she talks about this really is not about politics, it's about crimes. It's really, and it's atrocious that Todd Blanche has failed to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act over and over again, whether it's on the redaction issue, over-redacting with respect to co-conspirators, and under-redacting for those survivors where victim information is revealed, or failing to provide a redaction list, which was a specific requirement of the law. Over and over, he just doesn't pay attention to what his obligations are.
Jennifer, the Vice President of the United States said that the controversy regarding the Epstein files and their release was a communications problem above all else. I want to play what he says and talk about it on the other side.
We absolutely screwed up the comms of the Epstein files, like we just did. But do I think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something? No. I think Pam was trying to respond to the political moment. I think she overstated what we had and what we didn't have. And I think that she, got roasted for it publicly. If people want to say we mishandled the Epstein release, guilty. We did mishandle, especially the communications of it.
Jennifer, you've spent hours, days, weeks, months, years with some of these survivors. Was that a communications problem only, or did it go right to the heart of what these poor people have had to live with for so many years, being at the hands of this heinous, evil monster?
Luke, that's exactly right. To call this a communications problem is really absurd and demeaning to the survivors, whether it's Epstein survivors or any other survivor that needs to be listened to, and investigations need to be had. When you read those files, you look at them, millions of pages, where is the investigation of anyone? Nobody was investigated. You heard Les Wexner testify in front of the House Oversight Committee. Nobody ever contacted him. This is not an appropriate way to handle real crimes. And what would he have done if his daughter had been one of those survivors, or someone who had been involved in this, and her nude photographs had been released? Would Vice President Vance or Acting Attorney General Blanche be so cavalier and simply call it a communications problem?
No, and Todd Blanche is the one who actually ended up leading the communications response, which says everything from the Situation Room at the White House.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, can I just say, I think it's also crazy that interview that Luke played with J.D. Vance, that it came out today. You made a point when it was playing that the right hand is clearly not speaking to the left hand. This is just amateur hour at the OK Corral.
Oh, it is. It is very much amateur hour, and unfortunately, Jennifer, that is the plight of the women who are held hostage by this administration in getting the relief that they've been seeking for 30 years now. And I found it very interesting, I would love to get your thoughts on this point, that throughout the hearing today, did anyone mention Pam Bondi? I mean, the fact that Pam Bondi basically said 38 plus times in her hearing, in her testimony before the various committees, that it was Todd Blanche who orchestrated, organized, was the big bromo behind the scenes doing all of this. So if there was anyone who, according to the vice president, mishandled it, according to Pam Bondi, that would have been Todd Blanche. So here we are, all roads, all things circle back down that drain, right? Down that drain to Mr. Blanche. And so how do you see this? Am I not in the same spot here where I think everyone else should be? Because I really think at the end of the day, we can point fingers at Bondi, we can point fingers at miscommunication. You need to look at who was orchestrating and in charge and acting primarily as the consigliere, the one who was executing what Donald Trump wanted. And that was Blanche.
Michael, that's exactly right. And this particular consigliere was engaged in fake transparency from the beginning. He was meeting at the outset with the chief of staff and other members of the Trump administration in the Situation Room to try to protect the files from being released. And so what did he do? He came up with this kind of cagey, kind of fake transparency gambit where he said, okay, let's pretend like we really care about the Epstein files being released. And instead, we will just ask the courts to release secret grand jury testimony, knowing that that would never happen. And we saw the same kind of caginess and fake transparency today when he's talking about meeting with survivors, or really not meeting with survivors, when for the first time before he was saying, okay, no problem, open door, come visit, I'll meet with anyone. And today he said, well, I now have a staffer that might be able to book you to meet with that staffer.
Jennifer, it's actually ridiculous. Another thing that we found very ridiculous today is that Catherine Ruemmler was before the committee today, the Oversight Committee on the House side, and she was there. We don't have any video because, of course, when people go before the Oversight Committee, they don't want us to have any video. We will see a transcript very soon. And she was Goldman Sachs' chief legal officer, and she was Obama White House counsel. She is mentioned at least 8,000 times in the Epstein files. And this matters because when Epstein was arrested on July 6th, Ruemmler was one of 3 people he called. She helped craft media strategy, allegedly, for him. But this is what her opening statement said today. Epstein was a masterful liar, and he clearly lied to me. I can see now that he used me and other respectable people to legitimize his standing, and I know now that he often exaggerated his relationship with me to others. I could go on reading, Jennifer, but this feels like revisionist history to me.
I think that's correct, Simone. But what you see here from her, as we've seen from person after person that does these transcribed interviews, is their defense is hear no evil, see no evil. I saw nothing. There was nothing for me to see. He was a master manipulator. And for her to claim also that she was having a professional relationship with him is also absurd. Here she is giving him romantic details, intimate details about her romantic life. That's not what a professional relationship is part of. And I have to say, I'm particularly disappointed in Goldman Sachs for initially it seemed like she was going to be gone. There was going to be some consequence to her. But now, no, she's going to have a 2-year consultancy and pick her successor. That's not accountability.